Challenger.
Welcome, guys and gals. This is your host, Frog Prince Runner, and thank you for dropping by. One of these days, and it won't be long, this will break my brain and I'll be gone. Farewell, science and logic, as I'll be a stupid couch? In all seriousness, has it ever happened to you when you wake up one day and find the world has changed while you are not looking? And then you ask the question, what happened? Did I miss a meeting? I'm talking about a relatively small channel called Darius Savage and a video titled Differential Equations and Linear Algebra Proves the Earth is Flat. Flat Earth Proven True. Obviously, he had me at the title. Call it a bias, but even before clicking the link, I knew if there was any math involved, it is bound to be wrong. After watching the video, I'm now thoroughly confused. Let's start with the description. It is rather long and starts with, I'm over here just destroying the scientific community, my brain waves crushing their tiny little synapses. Good start, but then it completely goes off the rail. Though it is in English, most of it was beyond my understanding. Near the end, Darius explains, I write a bunch of shit in the description to scare people off. Nobody who's in their right mind would read all of this for a dude with 20 subs unless you're batshit insane. Hey, he got me there. I am batshit insane. Well done. Oh, by the way, this video has closed caption in traditional Chinese, and I thought I would have a look. And that CC simply says, China is number one. I love Chinese women, food, men, diseases, and most of all, the attitude that they have for the people in the USA. Love it. I unironically believe we're in a cold war with them. Get you guys some cryptocurrencies? Can you begin to see why it is hurting my brain? Now, this video may as well be what is called trolling, but to be honest, I'm too old to understand what that word really means. Seems like this is another of those amazing words that can be used anytime, any place. It is almost like it's a prank, bruh, but much more versatile. In fact, it is so versatile, I don't even know who it is meant to be trolling. And it is dawning onto me that maybe it is trolling me? Fine, I'll let them have it. I'll address this later on. So, let's see the video, shall we?
Alright, I haven't made a video in some time. I seen in my last two videos that when I touched on this topic that I got a lot of unnecessarily hate. And you know, it's typically from people who don't have a college education that will typically steer this way. Reason why I haven't made a video in some time is because I finally got my doctorate. As you can see here, I got it shipped in. So, there we go.
My first thought was, that can't be a real university, can it? But I was wrong. This is apparently a real organization. Unmanned Vehicle University, or EVU, is not yet accredited by the professional accreditation agencies, but is licensed by the State of Arizona Board of Education. What bugs me a little bit is, I studied computer systems engineering in Sheffield, and these people have a course topic, Introduction to Systems Engineering, worth 4 credits, and the site has a cart. First time in my life I saw a university website that thinks it is an online store. Seems like the end goal of this course is to be a drone pilot. Hey, I have a drone, and I never needed any of things I learned in university for flying that darn thing. But this is a so-called joke, right? I mean, this printed piece of paper does say student name. Oh well.
What I realized doing in mathematics is that the Earth is actually a curve, and I'm going to break it down for you guys. So we know the sun gets its sunlight from the surrounding planets.
Well, we all know flat earthers can be this stupid. So Po? Not Po? Well, anyway, Sun is a yellow dwarf star heated to incandescence by nuclear fusion reaction in its core, radiating the energy mainly as light and infrared radiation. In simple terms, Sun is a light source and does not get sunlight from surrounding planets.
The other planets are more of a, 348 degrees, not 360 like a circle. They're 348. The reason for that, because the planets are a lot older than Earth. Earth is give or take about 27,000 years old.
This is the part where I can feel my brain melting. I don't even understand this 340 degree. But one thing we all know. We estimate the Earth to be around 4.54 billion years old, plus or minus 50 million years. Efforts to figure out the age of Earth go back many centuries. The classic Greek philosopher Aristotle, who thought time had no beginning or end, also believed that Earth was infinitely old, while religious scholars in ancient India, who envisioned a universe that perpetually exploded, expanded and collapsed only to begin anew, calculated that Earth has existed for 1.97 billion years. During the medieval era, various Christian theologians scrutinized the Bible for clues and came up with estimates between 5,471 and 7,519 years. From the 1700 and 1800, an assortment of scientists came up with various figures based on clues ranging from Earth's rate of cooling and the accumulation of sediment to the chemical evolution of the oceans. Just before the beginning of the 20th century, scientists figured out that they could calculate the age of a rock by measuring radioactive delay, a method called radiometric dating. In the early 1950s, a California Institute of Technology geochemist named Claire C. Patterson, who had worked on the Manhattan Project to develop the atomic bomb during World War II, measured the isotopic composition of lead from the Canyon Diablo meteorite and several other pieces of space rock, which were believed to date back to the disk of material from which Earth also formed. In 1953, Patterson came up with an estimate of 4.5 billion years. Since then, research on meteorites and lunar rocks has refined that number only slightly.
What you're seeing is that the Earth is a curve, as we can see here. And the reason it's curved is because the mantle is constantly expanding the Earth. We have mantle that is creating new crust, and as a result, the Earth is constantly expanding. And that's why I say, in about like 20-30 years, the Earth is going to resemble more of a circle. But currently we're at, I believe, 92 degrees.
Now, before we all laugh, in 1834, during the second voyage of HMS Beagle, Charles Darwin investigated steppe plains featuring raised basins in Patagonia, which indicated to him that a huge area of South America had been uplifted to its present height by a succession of elevation which acted over the whole of this space with nearly an equal force, while his mentor, Charles Lyell, had suggested forces acting near the crust on smaller areas. Darwin hypothesized that uplift at this continental scale required the gradual expansion of some central mass, acting by intervals on the outer crust, with the elevations being concentric with forms of globe, or certainly nearly so. In 1835, he extended this concept to include the Andes as part of a curved enlargement of the Earth's crust due to the actions of one connected force. Not long afterwards, he moved on from this idea and proposed that as mountains rose, the ocean floor subsided, explaining the formation of coral reefs. In 1889 and 1909, Roberto Mantovani published a hypothesis of Earth's expansion and continental drift. He assumed that a closed continent covered the entire surface of a smaller Earth. Thermal expansion led to volcanic activity, which broke the landmass into smaller continents. These continents drifted away from each other because of further expansion at the reef zones where oceans currently lie. Then there was a compromise between Earth expansion and Earth contraction, is the theory of thermal cycles by Irish physicist John Joly. He assumed that heat flow from radioactive decay inside Earth suppresses the cooling of Earth's exterior. Together with British geologist Arthur Holmes, Joly proposed a hypothesis in which Earth loses its heat by a cyclic period of expansion. In their hypothesis, expansion led to cracks and joints in Earth's interior that could fill with magma. This was followed by a cooling phase, where the magma would freeze and become solid rock again, causing Earth to shrink. In 1938, English theoretical physicist Paul Dirac suggested that the universal gravitational constant had decreased in the billions of years of its existence. This led German physicist Pascual Jordan to a modification of general relativity and to propose in 1964 that all planets slowly expand. Contrary to most of the other explanations, this one was, at least within the framework of physics, considered as a viable hypothesis. However, none of these hypotheses had never developed a plausible and verifiable mechanism of action. During the 1960s, the theory of plate tectonics, initially based on the assumption that Earth's size remains constant and relating the subduction zones to burying of lithosphere at a scale comparable to seafloor spreading, became the accepted explanation in the earth sciences.
We are working in chapter 9.2. We're going over linear and almost linear systems right there. And we're going to be using this formula. Where is it at? Right there. So when you plug in everything, we have 92 degrees, which is equal to the Earth's atmosphere. And we have 4.97, which is equal to gravity. And then we have pi being 3.17463. All right. Then we have sin dv divided by tan. And then we're going to be plugging in this formula. So let's see what we get.
Let me guess. We get a Bozo the Clown, right? And I'm glad the calculator didn't explode with that value of pi.
And as we see here, we get 99b. So what 99b is equivalent to is, and there's a professor named Lazarus that has gone over this.
Well, that is a cool name, and thanks to Batman, we all know what it means. But do tell us what it means. I'm dying of anticipation.
What we're also getting is we're getting the true formation. Because if you guys ever remember during the invasion of Iraq, when the U.S. was dropping missiles and bombs on Baghdad, the problem that they noticed is that when they were over here in D.C., what the configurations and numbers they were getting was very different from the naval ships out in sea. So we'll have the naval ships out of D.C. Because their projections were like this. But if we right here, what we get is 99b. What the naval ships were getting, they were getting, let me plug this in. They were getting, so right here, plugged everything in. They were getting DLV. So what DLV is destination landing vehicle. And that's where they typically get.
Time for a quick apocryphal story from the European wars. The military apparatus of Napoleon's era observed that the new long-range cannon landed their missiles always to the right when accurately trained on the target before firing. The apparent deflection of the missile from the straight path between gun and target was explained by a Frenchman named Gustave Gaspard Corliss as due to the movement of the Earth and therefore the target while the missile was in flight. Following his death in 1843, the apparent deflection of missiles and other moving objects was named after him. However, the story is improbable. More recent developments in the science of ballistics make the Corliss effect more significant. For instance, a German gun of 21 cm bore called Big Bertha was used in 1918 to shell Paris from a distance of 122 km. Over such distances, the inclusion of the Corliss effect is at least as important as the consideration of deflection by the wind.
So back to this. So the Earth can't be a circle, because if we have a circle right here, if we were finally 360 degrees, what would be happening is the temperature and the heat as being reflected off of the planets, being reflected off of the sun too, it would be heating up the planet, and that's why we'd be getting global warming. The sun rays would pierce right through because Earth's atmosphere is completely weak, and the rays would melt the polar ice caps.
Hey, I agree with the first part. Earth cannot be a circle because, drumroll, a circle is a 2D sphere. When in 3D, it is called a sphere, and Earth is not even a true sphere, but spherical. Sun rays do not pierce through Earth. I don't need to explain that, do I? Global warming is a real thing. Maybe I should have a video explaining what it really is.
Again, I am a doctorate, so I went in, I did the school, I went through math, I did everything that needed to be done, and to me the math corrects itself. Math is not falsified, but is reality. All right, and I want to thank you guys for watching this video. Go ahead and check out my other videos. You know what? No, I'm not going to say check out my other videos because those other videos were wrong. This is more precise and scientific.
Fine, he's a po. And this is what my issue with this kind of people. There are many who are genuinely stupid and they would get all their knowledge from YouTube videos. Well, don't get me wrong. There are channels with correct scientific data. But for every one of those channels, you get hundreds more with bullshit. Even some of us debunkers would make videos with completely wrong equation, while having a smug smile as if we have achieved something. This does not help our society in any way, nor does it help our future generations. Imagine someone truly wants to know more, and as reading a book is not cool, and us having a very small attention span, we want everything as if it is fast food. Then they would come across shit like this video. What is likely to happen? For all the pros out there, get a freaking life. There are other things you can do to entertain yourself. Thing that doesn't cause harm to others. This kind of bullshit is harmful, and you guys are not clever. There is nothing clever about this. Here is where I will end this video. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully your brain didn't melt during this period. If you have enjoyed it, please leave a like, comment and share it around. And if you already haven't, please consider subscribing, as it would help me bring more contents to you and is very much appreciated. Wherever you are, have a safe day. Signing off.